Hello, hello everyone. Uh, Welcome to week 9 of problem solving session for NPTL and communication networks. So today we will be doing slotted ALOHA, and after that we will do binary backoff and then passive optical networks. We will complete these three chapters today, and then after going through the basic concept of these chapters we will try to solve some problems together. So without further ado, I will begin today's class. So first let's go to the lecture material. So the lecture material has stabilized slotted ALOHA, Bayesian estimation, and binary backoff algorithm. So these are some of the topics today. And then there is PON and Ethernet MAC. So let's first go to stabilized slotted ALOHA. In slotted ALOHA, what was the principle? The principle was that in ALOHA, transmitter sends packet whenever it has packets to send. In slotted ALOHA, transmitter sends packets only at beginning of the time slot. So in slotted ALOHA, the packet is only transmitted at the beginning of the time slot. So at the beginning of the time slot, there is some probability of collision, but once at the so there is a probability of collision. So there is a probability of collision only at beginning of time slots. Instead of collisions happening anytime, in slotted ALOHA, the collisions are being controlled by only allowing them to happen at the beginning of time slots. So if a packet safely passes the beginning of the time slot without collision, then it is guaranteed to reach the receiver without further collisions. So this is slotted ALOHA. Now we will go to a further improved version of slotted ALOHA called stabilized slotted ALOHA. So here we can see there is a Markov analysis of slotted ALOHA. So here when we have 0, 0 is the number of nodes which have some packet to send but cannot send right now because it is waiting for its own slot. So it is the number of backlog nodes. So the number of backlog nodes, if there is 0 backlog nodes and 1 packet arrives, it will go to 1, or it can go to 2 or 3. So the thing is, since the packets are getting generated independently, so how many senders at a particular time have packets to send and how many doesn't is not in under any central control. So we can have from no packets having no senders having any packet to send, we can suddenly have 2 or 3 packets and nodes having some packet to send. So the any from this is a fully connected Markov chain such that the transition from any node to any node is possible. So this backlog, so the backlog will tend to infinity, and there is no steady state here because all states are possible at all times. So from a particular state I, it can go to any particular state j, where j is anything including I. So here we see that if Gn is the number of is the attempt rate, that is the expected number of packets transmitted in a slot in state n. So state n means there are n systems who want to send some packet. So then the attempt rate or expected number of packets transmitted is given as lambda plus nqr, where q is the number of packets already in queue. So from here we can see that the probability of success is g to the power minus g, where gn is the offered traffic or attempt rate. So we have done this already in the previous chapter. We have done this, so that the throughput, we have written it as throughput in the previous week. The previous week we have written throughput is equal to g to the power minus g. That is what is precisely written here. So the throughput of slotted ALOHA depends on the load traffic load, as this particular figure, as this graph. So we can see that at offered load equal to 1, there is a maximum throughput, and after that the throughput reduces. So at offer load of 1, the maximum throughput is e to the power minus 1. So that is the maximum throughput. So in slotted ALOHA, the maximum success on average that you can get in transmission is 36.8% or e to the power minus 1. So maximum throughput in slotted ALOHA, max throughput in slotted ALOHA, 36.8%, which is e to the power minus 1. So on an average, the maximum packets maximum number of packets that can be transmitted without collision is 36.8 per 100 packets actually transmitted. So if backlog increases, so instability of slotted ALOHA, since slotted ALOHA has a Markov chain that goes to infinity, if backlog increases, then it tends to increase without repeat. So if backlog increases, then if one if one system fails to deliver the packet at the first slot, then it will wait for the second slot. But at the second slot, there may be 3 more transmitters getting ready to send their packet. So there is an inevitable collision. So when the next slot arrives, then there might be 5 packets which have to be sent. So again there is a collision. So because the backlog increases beyond limit, so collisions become inevitable, and the thing is the departure rate, that is the packets that are actually getting serviced, drops to 0. So the solution is stabilizing slotted ALOHA. So the solution given is that you have to estimate the backlog from the past. So whatever the backlog is currently, you have to estimate whatever the backlog is. You have to currently estimate that using whatever has happened in past. So using that, we will estimate the backlog, and once we have estimated the backlog, we will choose the value of QR. QR is the retry. So here lambda is arrival rate. So here GN, the offered load, has 2 parts. One is lambda. Lambda is the number of new packets that have arrived, and another is NQR, where N is the backlogged nodes. So how many nodes are backlogged right now? So if 3 nodes are backlogged, that is 3 nodes have packets which they should have sent previously but couldn't because of collision. So at the particular time instance, there is the new packet arrivals which have arrived during the interslot time, and the old packets which have not yet been transmitted because of backlog. So number of nodes which are currently in backlog is N, and QR is the retry interval. So these nodes will, once they fail to transmit their packet, they have a back-off time. They cannot retry immediately after. If one packet fails and they retry it immediately after, and then it can again fail. So because the thing is that packet is not getting serviced, so whenever new packet comes, that packet will collide with the new packet and create collision. So that packet will fail to depart from the service until and unless there is one slot where no packet arrives. So this increases backlog. That's why we do not allow immediate reattempts. We make the system node wait for some time before it can retry again. So this is this rate at which the packet can retry. That is the time after which the packet can again, the sender can again retry sending the packets, is given by QR. So the mean retry time is 1 by QR. So the mean retry time 1 by QR. So QR is the rate at which the sender reattempts sending the packet. So we will estimate the backlog n. So we will somehow try to estimate the value of this n. Once we have estimated the n, we will choose QR such that Gn equal to 1. So estimate n and estimate n and use QR such that Gn is equal to 1. So assume all arrivals are immediately backlogged. So here when the estimate of n is perfect, then the success occurs with a probability of 1 by e, idle state occurs with a probability of 1 by e, and collisions of course is the third state. So collision will occur with will occur with probability 1 minus 2 by e. So 1 by e and 1 by e are the ideal probability, that is no sender has any packet to send, and success, that is only one sender has any packet to send. So collision is the exclusion of these two events. So we have to somehow estimate n, and from n we will solve for qr such that qr is the mean retry time. We will solve for qr such that gn equal to 1, because we know that maximum throughput is when g is equal to 1. At g is equal to 1 we get the maximum throughput. So we will aim to keep the offered traffic load always at 1. So we will estimate the backlog and then we will find the mean retry time such a way. So now how do we estimate n? So there is no exact science, so you will just observe the past behavior, and based on that you will try to modify the value of n. You will start with an initial seed value, so you will start with an initial seed value, then modify according to user demand. So here, if all arrivals are immediately backlogged, so here we are assuming that arrivals are not immediately serviced, they are centered backlog. So if you arrive, then you at least have to wait for one slot, you can not immediately get serviced. So now gn has two parts, lambda and nqr. So if we assume that all arrivals are immediately backlogged, that makes lambda 0, because there is no effectively no arrival, only your backlog is increasing. So here there is absolutely zero traffic from arrival, so the only traffic is coming from reattempts of the backlogged queue. So here gn is equal to nqr. Now success is that only one packet will attempt transmission, others will not. So this is the probability of success. Now for max throughput we will send gn is equal to 1. So if gn is equal to 1, qr is 1 by n, but provided n is not less than 1. If n is less than 1, then you have to choose n equal to 1, because n cannot be less than 1. So qr is bounded by the 1. Qr is bounded by the value 1, because at best it can attempt to send the packet once every slot. It cannot go faster than that. So qr is limited to 1. Now from here, so we will, after kth slot we will try to get the estimate of the backlog. So if nk is the estimate of the backlog after kth slot, so this is iterative, this is an iterative process, this has no exact formula. So the value of n is an iterative process. So if let nk equal to estimate of backlog after kth slot, then nk plus 1 is maximum of lambda and nk plus lambda minus 1. So the maximum of these two. That means the see, if all arrivals are immediately backlogged, then the number of packets in the backlog has to be at least equal to the number of packets that have arrived. Because even if there is no backlog being created, all the backlog service key packets are getting serviced. Even then, there will be the packets that are arriving at that slot, and they are by principle not allowed to leave the server in that slot. So the maximum is the minimum estimate of the backlog is lambda. So it can be more than lambda, but it will never be less than lambda. And from there, and the maximum is and then basically we will our value of nk plus 1 will be nk plus lambda minus 1. So nk plus lambda minus 1 we will increase like that, but provided this is less than lambda. If it is provided it is greater than lambda. If it is less than lambda, then we will take lambda, because it cannot go lower than lambda. Now this can be shown to be stable for lambda less than 1 by e. So this system, this stabilized total ALOHA is stable. It won't grow exponentially, provided we keep the arrival rate at less than 0.368. So here we can see that at small arrival rates, we can have higher throughputs when we are using ALOHA, but we have lower latency and higher throughput. But when the arrival rate increases, the ALOHA, as the arrival rate increases, the backlog increases, and the backlog goes to infinity. So ALOHA has a huge backup, a huge backlog, so huge delay. Whereas TDM is moderate in that regards. So ALOHA is suitable for low intensity traffic. So this is slotted ALOHA. Now we will go to problems specifically regarding slotted ALOHA before we go to the next topic. Okay. Now let's go to the first problem from slotted ALOHA. Assume for simplicity that each transmitted packet in a slotted ALOHA system is successful with some fixed probability p. New packets are assumed to arrive at the beginning of a slot and are transmitted immediately. So new packets are assumed to arrive at the beginning of a slot and are transmitted immediately. They are not backlogged. If a packet is unsuccessful, it is retransmitted with probability QR in each successive slot until successfully received. The expected delay T from the arrival of the packet until the completion of its successful transmission. So we have to find the average delay of a typical packet. So the success probability is P, and The retransmission probability is QR. So we have to find the expected delay. Now we see that the probability that a packet is successful on first slot is P. So assume for that each transmit in slotted array is successful with some fixed probability P. So being successful has a probability P. The probability that it is successful, given that it has not been successful before ith slot, is PQR. That is the probability of retransmission times the probability of success. So for the first slot, the probability of success is P. For first slot, probability of success is P, and probability that it is successful in second slot but not in first slot is PQ. Next, thus no, this is not successful in second slot. This is basically successful in first slot first slot yes. So the probability that it is successful in first slot, given it has not been successful before, given not successful before, is PQR. Now this is for the first slot. What about the second slot? Successful in second slot but not before. So if it was successful in second slot but not before, that means it failed in the first slot. So this P is the probability of success, 1 minus P is the probability of failure, times the reattempt rate, QR. Now you go on like this. If you go on like this, you will get a GP. So here we can see this GP, this is the particular GP that you will get, and if you do a summation, you will get 1 plus 1 minus P by PQR. So I will leave it as a homework for you to derive. For now, you can just take this solution. This is 1 minus P by PQR. Now, Consider a link layer protocol which requires lost frames to be retransmitted. The probability of a frame being consider a link layer protocol which requires lost frames to be retransmitted. Now, for the probability of a frame being successfully transmitted is 1 minus p. What is expected number of transmissions? So, the probability of frame being successfully transmitted is 1 minus p. So, here it is opposite. Usually it is given as p, here it is given as 1 minus p. What is expected number of transmissions to successfully send a frame if acknowledgements are never lost? So the thing is, if you can successfully send a frame, the question assures that the acknowledgement will always come back. So the acknowledgement maybe has a dedicated channel where there is no collision. So we will assume the acknowledgement will always come back. But the lost frames, that is the frames that have undergone collision, will need to be retransmitted till the time it reaches the destination without collision. So the probability that the frame will require first retransmission. So every retransmission you will just, for P1, it will go in the first chance. So that is 1 minus P. For it will go in the second chance. That will be P into 1 minus P. Like that. So the mean number of transmissions is basically the expectation of this random variable k. So summation kpk. So summation k equal to 1 to infinity, since there is no limit on reactants. So this is just k into, so if you see p3, what will be p3? P3 is p square 1 minus p. So you just do like this. So ultimately what will be pk? Pk will be p to the power k minus 1 minus p. So it will be k p to the power k minus 1 minus p. So this is a arithmetico-geometric progression. So you take 1 minus p outside of the summation. K p to the power k minus. And let's take another p outside. So 1 minus p by p. So this is k to p to the power k. So this is basically summation of k p to the power k. So p plus 2p square plus 3p cube, like this. So how do you solve this? This is a very popular trick till infinity. This is a very popular trick used in class 12 mathematics. So what you do is you just multiply by p and shift 1 place. So this will be 2p cube, like that. So if you sum it up, it will be 1 minus p into sum is equal to p plus p square plus p cube up to infinity. So this is geometric progression. So it is first term by 1 minus common ratio. Here first term and 1 common ratio are both p. So p by 1 minus p. So s is p by 1 minus p whole square. Now your expectation value is, of k is, ek is basically this s into 1 minus p by p. So this will just be simply 1 by 1 minus p. So it will be the 1 by success probability. So correct answer is option A, 1 by 1 minus success probability. So slotted aloha. I think there is no more problems. Slotted aloha. Next we will go to CSMA CS, CSMA CD. These are other backoff algorithms that are popularly used. Now we will go to more sophisticated mechanisms known as carrier sense multiple access. So CSMA is a particular class of collision avoidance and collision detection algorithm. So basically collision management algorithm, which are more sophisticated than ALOHA. So in CSMA, what you will do is you will sense the carrier. That is, you will sense the channel before you have something to transmit. So you will get a sense of the surroundings before you start transmitting. That is the beauty of CSMA. So CSMA is based on the principle of sense before transmit or listen before talk. So the sender will listen into the medium whether someone is talking or not. If not, then only they will talk. So the possibility of collision will still exist because a system might think that no one is transmitting and it starts transmitting. But just then another system starts transmitting. Both of them have perceived that no one is transmitting. But because of delay, both of them are transmitting at the same time. So finally we end up with a collision in our hands. So even then we can have collision. But the thing is, if one packet starts completely sending, one sender, say the call, starts completely sending the packet, then others will at least abstain from sending. Whereas in slotted aloha, even if someone else was sending, if your time slot begins, you will send. If you have something to send and your time slot is beginning, you will send. But in CSMA, you have to first listen, then talk. So CSMA is a broad category of algorithm. We will be mostly focusing on two algorithms, CSMA-CA and CSMA-CD. CSMA-CA avoids collision and CSMA-CD detects collision. So CSMA-CD is simpler. It just detects collision, whether some collision has happened, and if has happened, then it will be transmitted. Whereas CSMA-CA will try to avoid the aforementioned collision. So what is the vulnerable time in CSMA? Because if all stations can sense someone is transmitting packet, then by its nature it will stop sending packets. So the only vulnerable part is this propagation time. If A starts sending a packet, it might take some amount of time T1 to reach packet, to reach sender, to reach the device B. So in this time, so the time it takes to travel the distance between A and B, this time is vulnerable because in this time, even though A has started sending data, B might think no one is sending any data, so it might start sending. So this is the vulnerable time for B. C is further apart from A, so the vulnerable time for C is more, whereas D is even further away from A, so the vulnerable time is even more. Simply speaking, vulnerable time for a particular node is the propagation time at that node. So this is a very simple form. The vulnerable time at a particular node is equal to the propagation time of that node. Excuse me for 2 minutes. Hello, sorry for the interruption. Yeah, so as I was saying that the vulnerable time is the propagation for CSMA. Now, what will the station do if the channel is busy? What will the sender do? It will wait. But this waiting is done scientifically, and this waiting method is called persistence method. So there is one persistent method, non-persistent method, and p-persistent method. In one persistent method, the channel is sensing, and it is finding that the medium is busy. At the single instance, when it finds that the medium is not busy anymore, that moment itself, the station will send the packet. So this is a very simple way. That is, you just look whenever it is not busy, you just send it. You don't have to do any waiting or anything. Next is non-persistent. Non-persistent, you will sense, you will wait. You will sense, you will wait. So there is a waiting time and there is a sensing going on after each waiting time. So you are not adapting this waiting time. You are just waiting for some time, transmitting. Waiting for some time, if not busy, transmitting. So this is again a very constant method, very inflexible method. So you can say this is 0 persistent and this is 1 persistent. So here the next is p persistent, where p is somewhere between 0 and 1. So this is a more flexible method, which is a hybrid of this 1 persistent and non-persistent method. So here it will sense. First it will sense the medium. It is finding it to be busy. And if it is finding it to be busy, so it will wait till here. Here it finds that the packet is no longer, that the medium is no longer busy. So it can send the packet. But if it were 1 persistent method, it would have sent immediately. But here it will send only if a particular random integer is less than p, where p is the parameter of this p persistent method. So it can be 0.5 persistent, 0.9 persistent, whatever the p value is. It will draw a random integer, and if the random integer is less than p, that is, it will send with a probability of p, and with a probability of 1 minus p, it will not send. And if it decides not to send, then it will wait a time slot. And wait at if after waiting a time slot, it finds the channel to be busy, then it will wait some more, and then it will find a particular time when the channel is no longer busy. So it will again, with a probability of p, send, or else wait for a time slot. So at every instance when it can send a packet, it is not sending a packet. It is instead drawing a dice. It is doing a lucky draw. So whenever it has a chance to send the packet, it will draw a random variable and a random variable between 0 and 1 and compare it with the fixed value p. If it is less, it will send. If it is more, it will not. So every time it is not, whenever it is finding a idle channel, it is not sending. It is instead waiting. So this is a p persistent method. So 1 persistent is that if channel is busy, true, then wait. If channel is not busy, transmit. Non-persistent is channel is busy, true, then you wait for a random amount of time, and then you again sense. And whenever you see that the channel is not busy, you transmit. In p persistent, if the channel is busy, then you wait. If the channel is not busy, then you generate a random number between 0 and 1. Compare it with p. If it is less than p, then you will transmit. If not, then you will wait for a time slot, and then you will again sense. And after sensing, if you find the channel to be busy, then you will wait for some more using a process called backoff process. But if it is not busy, then you will again generate a random number. So you will keep on generating random numbers when the channel is idle. When the channel is busy, you will wait. And when the channel is idle, you will keep on generating random numbers till you get a random number which is less than the value p. So if I increase the value of p, if say the value of p is 0.9, that means there is a high probability that r will be less than p. So there is a high probability that at every chance you will send the data. Whereas if the p value is very low, then at every time you get a idle channel, there is a very low probability that you will actually transmit. You might wait a slot and again wait a slot and again wait a slot. So this p is a design choice, and if you choose a very high value of p, then you will have a lot of collision in your hands. But if you choose a very low value of p, then you will have to wait for a long time before you can actually transmit the packet. Now CSMA CD. So the CSMA CD algorithm basically handles the collision by detecting. It just detects. It does not do anything to avoid the collision, but it can alert whenever a collision has happened. So here we have a flowchart for this CSMA CD. This flowchart can easily explain instead of going to the text. You initialize a particular counter K. So this is a reattempt counter. K is a reattempt counter. So K equal to 0 is a reattempt counter, and then you apply one of the persistence methods and you send the packet. If it is done, then it is done, and with if it is done, then if it is done and there is no collision, then you have success. But if it is not done, if it is done but there is a collision, if transmission is done and there is a collision, then you will send a jamming signal. What does sending a jamming signal means? Sending a jamming signal means you stop the stations from transmitting. You say, hey, there has been a collision, please stop sending the packets right now. So, and because your attempt failed, so you will increment the attempt counter. Now there is a maximum number of attempts, 15 suppose. So maximum number of reattempts you can do. You cannot do more than that to send one packet, because else to service your one packet entire network will get backlogged. So there is a maximum number of reattempts, after which you have to just give up on transmitting that packet. That is when packet drop happens. So here if the value of K is less than 15, then we can continue. If it is greater than 15, we have to abort the mission of sending this packet. And if it is less than 15, because we have sent a jamming signal, so there is no packet transmission going on right now. So here then we will wait, create a random number R, and then wait for that particular backoff time, which is determined by R. This TB is determined by R. So how many frame times we will wait is random. So TFR is the frame time. So we can wait 1 TFR, we can wait 2 TFR, like that. And then using one of the persistence method, we will again send the frame. So whenever we are detecting the collision, we are sending a jamming signal and we are stopping all the transmission till a particular backoff time, which is randomly generated. Why is this backoff time randomly generated? Because if a collision occurs at T and we again, after a fixed amount of time, say a collision occurs at T0, then again after T0 plus TFR, we transmit. Then because everyone is waiting for this TFR amount of time, again the same collision will repeat. And again, since everyone is waiting for TFR, again at T0 plus 2 TFR, all the collisions will again repeat. So the collision that has been happening because of multiple senders sending, if the multiple senders wait for the same time to transmit again, then the same collision will happen again. And if they wait for the same time, then the same collision will happen again and again and again. So this collision, number of these collisions will go on. So that's why all stations will wait for a random amount of time. So then the station 1 will wait for say TFR, station 3 might wait for 3 TFR. Like that. This ensures that everyone will retransmit at different times so that the same collision cannot happen again. So this is CSMA CD. Now for CSMA CA, there is some more waiting and more sending. So here we will try to estimate whether some collision will happen or not. And then if we estimate that a particular packet will not experience collision, only then will we send the packet. So CSMA CA avoids collision. It does not just detect collision, it avoids collision. So there is no, so the number of reattempts are expected to be lower, but the time between two reattempts will increase. So CSMA CD has CSMA CD has more number of reattempts. Average, it needs more number of reattempts, CSMA CD, but less time between reattempts. But here the time between reattempts is huge, but the number of reattempts that we have to do might be lesser, because we are avoiding collision. We are not simply just detecting whether a collision is happening, we are avoiding it altogether. So here first we will again initialize the reattempt counter, then we will find whether the channel is free or not. If the channel is free, then we will wait for IFS. IFS is interframe space. So this is a particular amount of time, a fixed amount of time that we have to wait. This is fixed. Then we will choose a random integer between 0 and 2 to the power k minus 1, and we will choose a random integer. So this is a contention window, and use the rth slot. So the entire time window is divided into multiple slots, and you choose a particular slot based on lottery. So there will be 2 to the power k minus 1 slots, and you choose one among them by lottery. So you choose a particular slot by lottery, and then you send a request to send. So this is not the packet. This is a mere pilot packet that we will send just to check the environment. That is, it's clear to send or not. We will just send a request to send, and based on that request to send, it is a pilot packet. Based on that request to send, we should get back a clear to send. So you are sending the receiver a small packet saying, hey, can I transmit? And you should get back from the receiver a packet which will say it's okay to transmit. You can start transmitting. So you will set a timer. You will start a timer after sending the RTS packet and wait for the CTS. So is the CTS received? Yes. Then you wait for another IFS time, which is a constant time, and then you send the frame. And then send the frame, and then you start a timer again. And if you receive an acknowledgement before the timer runs out, that means your packet has reached the receiver. But if you do not receive an acknowledgement, that means your k, if you do not receive an acknowledgement, that means k equal to k plus 1, you will reattempt. If you do not receive an entry acknowledgement, because there has been a collision. And if we do not get the clear to send before timeout, then we will of course know that there can be two things. We have sent the packet, but we have not got acknowledgement. That means collision has happened. Despite our best efforts, collision has happened. And another case is that you haven't received the CTS at all. You have sent an RTS, if you remember, but you have not received the corresponding CTS. So this is again means the channel is not clear to send, and you will of course have a timer. You will wait for the CT. You cannot wait for the CTS till eternity. So once this timer runs out and you have not received that CTS, then also you will increase the reattempt window, that is a reattempt counter, that is you will try to send the message again. This attempt has failed. So this step means attempt failed. Now, how many failed attempts are you allowed? There is a limit usually. Usually it's say 10 or 15. So if this many amount of failed attempts you have done, then you have to abort the mission of sending the packet. It's a failed mission altogether. If not, if the number of reattempt is within the limit, then you will wait for a back off window TP and you will start the process again. So you will send the packet only when you will receive a clear to send, and then you should also receive an acknowledgement. So you will send an RTS and receive a CTS before time, and once you receive the CTS you will send the frame, and then you should receive the ACK before time. So you have two-layer feedback for avoiding collision. But even then, this false indicates there has been a collision. You have sent the packet, but the acknowledgement is not received. That means there has been some collision despite your best attempts. So CSMA CA avoids collision to some extent, but it is not 100% foolproof method. Now this IFS, what is IFS? IFS is first collisions are avoided by deferring transmission even if the channel is found idle. So IFS is basically a particular fixed amount of time that you will wait even if the channel is idle. If the channel is busy, of course you will wait, but even if the channel is idle, you will wait in CSMA CA. And contention window is basically this time slot division. So everyone will not send their RTS at once. If everyone finds that the packet is that the channel is idle, everyone will not send RTS at once, because that will again create a collision of its own. So even to send the RTS, you should get a particular slot. So this is how CSMA CA avoids collisions. Now we will go to some problems. Before that, we will also briefly discuss PON, because passive optical network has also been taught in this module. Okay, so we will just do a brief review of what is PON, and we will go into the details of PON in the next class. So PON is basically optical network, passive optical network. So here we will have a particular transmission box called OLT, which will transmit optical signals, and then we will have terminal devices at the receivers, or the receivers. So the various packets, various users will have various packets transmitted through the same medium using light wave. So this is passive optical network. So passive optical network will have one optical line terminal or OLT at the service provider. So this is how optical networks work, like optical fiber in our home. And then a number of optical network unit ONU or optical network terminal ONT, which are near the end user. So basically there will be a OLT, which is a big device. It will send light waves in the optical fiber using total internal reflection, and then these light waves will be split and sent into various ONUs or terminal user devices, and this is how you create a passive optical network. And these are all wired communication networks, and passive optical network is much faster than but the traditional Wi-Fi based communication, and since it is wired, so it has a much higher fidelity compared to wireless transmission methods. So passive optical network has been one of the main enablers of this uh, internet revolution. So today most people have high speed internet in their home because of passive optical network. And also passive optical network has been used in the backhaul. That is, the front haul is the from the base station to the user, but how the base station connects to the larger internet network is via passive optical network. So we will delve deep into passive optical network in the next lectures. For today, we will just solve the problems regarding ALOHA and CSMA, CSMA, CD. So here, consider building a CSMA CD network running at 10 Gbps over a 1.25 kilometer cable with no repeaters. So there is a 1.25 kilometer cable, and you will have a CSMA CD network over that, the backhaul network. So the signal speed in the cable is 100,000 kilometers per second. So physically the signal will travel at 100,000 kilometers per second. That is 10 to the power 8 meters per second. So what is the minimum frame size? So the one so to transmit from one end of the cable to another end of the cable, so there is a long cable of 1.25 kilometer with no repeaters. So this is 1.25 kilometers. That is 1250 meters. And you have 10 to the power 8 meter per second speed. So what is the time needed for the signal? The time needed is 1250 by 10 to the power 8. So it is 12.5 125 into 10 to the power minus 7 seconds, or 12.5 microseconds. So round trip time RTT is given as 25 microseconds. So 10 Gbps, so you have 25 microseconds time for signal transmission, and the data rate is 10 Gbps. So how many bits? Number of bits transmitted is equal to 10 Gbps means 10 to the power 10 bits into 25 into 10 to the power minus 6 bits. So 25 into 10 to the power 4 bits. So a particular frame will be 25 into 10 to the power 4 bits, to 250 into 10 to the power 4 bits, sorry, 250, no, not 250, 25 into 10 to the power 4 bits, or if you want to express in bytes, it is 25 by 8 into 10 to the power 4 bytes. Now 25 by 8 is approximately 3, so 3 into 10 to the power 4 bytes, 30 kb or 30 kb. capital V. So here you see it's 3 kb, 25 microseconds. 3 kb. This will be 30 kb, 31,250 bytes. So 3125 is wrong, and 1563650 are all wrong. The correct answer is D. So 3125 might look tempting because it is just 1/10 of what is the correct answer, but you have to be careful of such traps. It is 31,250. So 30 kb, about around 30 kb. Now consider a CSMA CD network that transmits at 100 Mbps. Here small b means bits, so megabits, 10 to the power 6 bits, over a x kilometer cable with a signal speed of 20,000 km per second. That is 2 into 10 to the power 8. So 2 into 10 to the power 7. Sorry, 2 into 10 to the power 7. If the minimum frame size required for this network is 1250, then calculate the value of x. So it is just the converse of the previous problem. So 1250 bytes means data frame size is frame size. Now one signal will have one frame, one signal element will have one frame. So that is the minimum we are assuming. So we will assume that the frame size is 1250 byte, means one signal element, whatever time one signal element needs, that is the time one frame will need, and on the basis of that we will calculate the length of the cable. So frame size is 1250 bytes, so this is 1250 into 8 bits. 1250 into 2 is 2500, into 4 is 10,000, so this is 10,000 bits. 10,000 bits. Now 10,000 bits, and what is the rate? 100 into 10 to the power 6 bits, so 10 to the power 8 bits. So time is basically time for transmission. Time for transmission is basically the frame size divided by the data rate. Frame size divided by the data rate. So this will be 10,000. Frame size is 10,000 divided by data rate. Data rate is 100. Frame size is 10 to the power 8. So 10,000 is 10 to the power 4. So this will be 10 to the power minus 4 seconds. So 10 to the power minus 4 seconds is needed for a x kilometer cable. So x kilometer cable traveling at 20,000. Now you need to account for 20,000 kilometers per second. So 20,000. Now you need to account for the round trip. So 2 into x by 2000, 20,000. This will be 10 to the minus 4, because there will be a round trip, because the acknowledgement also has to come back for a particular signal to be transmitted successfully. So whatever the distance by time you get, you have to multiply by 2, because the light has to travel twice for one successful transmission of signal. So you cancel 2 here, and 10 to the power 4 with 10 to the power minus 4. So x is 1. It is simply 1 kilometer. X is 1 kilometer. Again, 1 is not one of the options, so you will just choose none of the above. Now CSMA CD. State whether CSMA CD is suitable for wireless communication. For wireless communication, collision is a very critical aspect, and we cannot afford to retransmit again and again. So we have to reduce the number of retransmissions, and thus we will have to go with, even at the cost of higher latency, we will have to go with CSMA-CA. The CSMA-CD is not suitable for wireless. CSMA-CD is used for optical networks. Whereas CSMA-CA, so higher latency, now CSMA-CA being used for wireless MAC gives higher latency, but lesser number of re-attempts. Dynamic bandwidth allocation again will be taught later, so I think this part can be skipped for now. Yes, now there is a big problem. Two CSMS series stations are series stations are trying to transmit long files. After each frame is sent, they content for the channel using binary exponential backoff algorithm. What is the probability that the contention ends on round k? So basically, after each frame is being sent, two stations will content for the channel. Content for the channel means they will draw random integers, and whosoever's integer is low, they will get to set because they will get the window first. Yeah. So after so here what happens is after k consecutive collisions, so if a particular collision happens with p, then after that collision the exponential backoff time increases by a power of 2. So after every collision, your reattempt means the time after which you can reattempt is increasing. So you are getting deprioritized. After every collision, you are getting further deprioritized for newer packets. So once you are starting to get late, you are getting deprioritized for newer packets so that they don't suffer latency at your cost. So after k consecutive collisions, in this figure a collision happens with probability p. So you can see there with the probability of p a collision is happening. A station delays retransmission by a random interval uniformly distributed between 0 and 2 to the power k. So every time you will choose a random interval from 0 to 2 to the power k, where k increases with reattempts. So first you will choose a time between 0 and 1. So you will just choose a time between 0 and 1. Next you will choose between 0 and 2. Next time you will choose between 0 and 4. So the odds of you landing a small number reduces, because the odds of landing 0.2 between 0 and 1 and 0.2 between 0 and 2 is lesser. So if you want to draw something between 0 and 0.2, here the probability will be 0.2, here the probability will be 0.1, and next time the probability will be 0.05, because here say you want to have a cutoff here 0.2. So what is the probability of drawing a number lesser than 0.2? It is 0.2 by 1, so 0.2. And what is the probability here? For the same thing, it's 0.2 by 2, so 0.1. Here, it's 0.2 by 2 to the power k minus 1. So as you can see, that the probability of you waiting for the same time, waiting for a small time, reduces. So in effect, the our expected waiting time increases. So if the expected waiting time is basically the mean. So it will be half here, 0.5. The expected waiting time will be 1 here. Next expected waiting time will be 2. Here the next expected waiting time will be 2 to the power k minus 2. So as you can see, the expected time is increasing. And here finally it will be 2 to the power k minus 1. So as the expected waiting time is increasing, so you have to wait for longer and longer. Now that with that out of the way, so now two CSMA CDs stations are contending for the same window. So starting from attempt 1, for attempt I of the packet of the stations, for attempt I, you will have 2 to the power I minus 1 slots. That's the 2 to the power I minus 1 slots as discussed, because with each failed attempt, your number of slots is increasing, waiting slots. So thus the probability of collision on attempt I is, since there are 2 to the power I minus 1 slots, so what happens is, say after attempt I there are 2 to the power I minus 1 slots. Okay, so you assign any one slot here to station 1. Now when will collision happen? Collision will happen if you allot the same slot to station 2. So you have to choose one of these slots. For station 1 there is no probability because any slot is identical. So wherever you place it has identical results. So we are not counting station 1. But for station 2 you can choose any one of them. But you choose the particular one which has slot station 1 already assigned. So this particular one, if there are 2 to the power I minus 1 slots, so this particular one, the probability of choosing is 1 by 2 to the power I minus 1. So 2 to the power minus I minus 1. Now this will lead to a failure. So starting from 1. So what is the probability that first attempt will fail? It is simply 2 to the power minus I minus 1. What is the probability that the second attempt will fail? So 2 to the power minus, so what is the probability that there will be? So success in first round, contention will end in first round. What is the probability that contention ends in first round? It is 1 minus 2 to the power minus I minus 1. What is the probability contention ends in second round? So first round there was, in second round there is something else. So here 1 minus 2 to the power I minus 1, and the first one has to fail. So 2 to the power I minus 1. Here I will be 2, and for third attempt to pass, this one will have success, the other two will have failure. So attempt number 1 and 2 has to fail. Like that, for pk you will have 1 minus 2 to the power minus I minus 1 into product of 2 to the power minus I minus 1. So I equal to 1 to k minus 1. So it succeeds in the kth round. So contention ends in the kth round. So up to k minus 1th round, you will have same selection for both, same slot selection for both. So if you simplify it, it will come as 2 to the power minus k minus 1 k minus 2. So 2 to the power minus k minus 1 k minus 2 by 2. So correct answer is option A. Now consider the system described in question 9. What is the mean number of rounds per contention period? So here basically for every contention window what we are seeing is we have found the probability that the contention will end in kth attempt. Now they are asking for the mean number of attempts, mean number of rounds. So kth, so the expectation of k. So we have found the distribution of k, pk as 2 to the power 1 minus 2 to the power minus I minus 1 into 2 to the power minus k minus 1 k minus 2. I think k minus 1 k minus 2. K by 2 k minus 1 k minus 2 by 2. This is the distribution. Now what we have to do is just we have to find the expectation of k. That is the average number of rounds before contention ends. So ek. So this is summation k equal to 1 to infinity k. Now this thing cannot be solved in normal summation, so you have to find it using software. So here it is saying that use MATLAB or something similar. So here this kind of question, if it comes in exam, it will be such that you can do in your on your pen and paper or at most calculator. You won't need MATLAB for exam, but for this particular problem you need to do a MATLAB code to find the summation, and the summation will, if you do, come at 2.642. So on average there are 2.642 rounds before contention ends. That is before the packets are allotted different backup slots so they can send without collision. So on the third attempt, 2 stations will get allotted different slots and they can send on the third attempt on an average. So this is all for today, and next week we will be going into optical pawn and other topics related to optical pawn, and 1 or 2 problems might be remaining here, so we will take that in the next class when we will be discussing pawn in detail. Till now, if you have any question, I am happy to take. If not, then the class is over. Is there any question? Is there any question at all? Okay. If not, then I will be ending the class. Thank you for joining. हाँ हो गया म्यूट है हो गया हाँ हाँ बस 130 हो जाए, हाँ राउंड फिगर हो जाए फिर बंद कर दो। हाँ